Welcome to the webinar today, Strategies for Essay Writing, Helping Adult Learners Become Stronger Writers. We're going to go ahead and give this about a couple of minutes, and then we will start. As people are filtering in. Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and begin. Thank you all again for joining us for our webinar today, Strategies for Essay Writing, Helping Adult Learners Become Stronger Writers. Our presenter today is Anne Meisanzahl from Leon County Schools, ACE. I'd like to give a quick overview of FLC. FLC is a statewide umbrella literacy organization and the host of Florida State Literacy Resource Center. FLC provides a range of services to support more than 300 adult education, literacy, and family literacy providers throughout the state of Florida. Special emphasis is placed on assisting community-based organizations, literacy organizations, with their training and program development needs. My name is Nicole Caban, and I am the Education and Training Coordinator for the Florida Literacy Coalition. All right, I want to go ahead and point out some tools to all of you. So if you look on your panel, you'll see a couple of different things. First, I want you to turn your attention to the little red arrow at the top of your panel on the left-hand side. What that does is it docks your panel, and if you click it again, it'll bring it back out. So if you don't want that distracting you, you can just click that button. On that same little panel side on the left, you'll have a hand icon. That's a hand raise button. So if we want to get a if you want to get an informal poll going, we'll just ask you to raise your hands. For instance, I'll ask, can everyone hear me? Does everyone have audio? Please press the little hand raise icon if you can hear me. Perfect. All right, that's a very good thing. Okay. All right, so I also want to turn your attention to the handouts section. In the handouts section, you're going to see 3 PDFs. You can download these at any time during the webinar. I encourage you to download it before the end of the webinar. You will no longer have access to it once it's down. If you do forget, you can email me and I will send you the copies of the PDF. All right, there's also a questions box on your panel. So there you can ask questions throughout the webinar, and we'll stop and ask if there are any questions. At that point, I will read the questions to Anne, and and she'll answer them out loud. If this is something you want to send privately, or if it's something that doesn't necessarily if it's something technical, I won't read those out loud. So if you want to just ask me something privately, just put private in your message. Okay. With that, we're going to go ahead and get started with with the webinar. So our presenter today is Anne Meisanzahl. Anne has worked as an adult educator and an exceptional education teacher in a variety of capacities in New York and Florida for over 30 years. And for the past 10 years, she's worked as a teacher and a curriculum writer with Leon County's Schools Adult and Community Education in Tallahassee, Florida. She wrote Taking Care of Yourself, Making the Transition from Corrections to Work, Education, and Daily Life, a free, reproducible 18-unit curriculum developed through a grant through the Florida Department of Education. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Anne. Anne?
Hi, everybody. Hi, Nicole. Thank you for the introduction. I'm excited to have a chance to talk with you all about essay writing today, particularly because the Florida Literacy Coalition will be putting out its essay book at the end of next semester, and its essay contest, which will be where the students can submit essays due in February, and I'll be talking a lot about that. But I am a big fan of getting students to write, and especially to write essays. So with that said, let's go ahead, and I'm planning to share some of my ideas and experiences with you, and we'll stop at various points to ask questions. One of the reasons that I think that essay writing is so important for our students is because it's authentic writing. It's writing for a reason, and many of our students have been discouraged by the way writing has been taught in public school. They've been taught discrete grammar and punctuation. Outside of actual writing, they've been taught multiple choice, fill in the blank kinds of writing where it's sort of exercise-based and less based on writing for a real authentic reasons. So why should we encourage our students to write essays in the adult education classroom? For one thing, writing essays gives ABE, GED, and ESOL learners the opportunity to express their opinions and thoughts about topics that are meaningful and engaging to them and to their readers. In other words, writing essays connects students with meaningful topics and gives them an opportunity to share those topics and to explore their own feelings about them. And by writing personal essays, learners become familiar with the steps of the writing process. They learn the power of written communication. Essay writing gives students the opportunity to write for a reason other than a grade or a test. It helps them develop critical thinking skills, meaningful communication skills, and it helps to connect them to the larger world. It can motivate reluctant writers who may say to you, as many of my students have said, and I'm sure you have heard students say, I can't write, I don't write, or I hate to write. If we give them the tools that engage them, they will find themselves much more motivated and interested in writing. Essay writing can help students see the many purposes of writing, give them specific tools for communicating their thoughts and feelings, and, here's the bonus, teach them the skills necessary to improve their TABE scores and pass the GED. So we are helping them prepare for the test. There's no mistaking that, but we're doing it in a motivating, fun, and meaningful way. We're teaching grammar, punctuation, capitalization, and spelling, but we're doing it in an authentic context. Essay writing helps reduce the stress that comes with writing for a grade or writing for a test, but it still prepares them for the test. So many of our students have been discouraged and come in and feel like, oh, I'm going to get a D, I've only gotten Fs. The FCAT and the rights upon request and the multiple evaluation tools that they've been exposed to can make them feel discouraged. So meaningful essay writing can help them move out of that discouragement and into the pleasure and enjoyment and power of writing. So in this webinar, we're going to discuss activities, graphic organizers, strategies to help learners do some pre-writing activities to help enrich their vocabulary and extend their ideas, to help them select a topic that engages them and excites them, help them then organize those thoughts, ideas, and feelings about the topic so that they can eventually compose that rough draft. Now, I'm not going to spend any time during this webinar with the specific steps of editing, revising, and finishing final drafts for publication because, and I'll share this with you later, there will be another webinar that focuses on that stage. But what we're going to do here is prepare those rough drafts, talk about all the different strategies we can use to prepare those rough drafts before the editing stage. The most important thing, I think, is helping students learn that writing is a tool for communicating and connecting with others. I think that's the power of writing that we want to get across. And I'll share with you some really fun ways to do that. So let's get started. Let's help them get started by doing a couple of specific things. You have a handout in the handout section that outlines the various purposes for writing, and I would encourage you to start the process with students by sharing this with them. Share with them that there are some key purposes for writing: to narrate, to explain or inform, to persuade, and to express feelings and opinions. And this handout goes through each of those four purposes, talks a little bit about what that means, and then gives examples of places where writing involves these particular purposes. So it's a nice way to get started by saying to students, okay, so one of the reasons we write is to narrate. Can you think of times that you have read stories, or tell us, what do you know about stories? How do stories work? What about biographies? Is that narration? So in other words, to really get that discussion started about all the different kinds of writing there are. So we're going to talk about one purpose of writing to narrate. We're going to talk about another purpose of writing is to explain or to inform. Teaching others. Students build confidence by learning how to teach others what they know. And then we can talk about some of those examples: recipes, instructions, essays that explain how to do something. Book summaries. I have my students each select a book of their own choice and then summarize it by talking about the author, the title, the genre, why they chose the book, to tell a summary of the story, and then share it with other students. So that's an example of how writing then can explain or inform, teach other students about what they learned by reading the book. One of the purposes of writing, obviously, is to persuade, to convince other people of your opinion or your position. You might talk to them about, where would we find persuasive writing? Is Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech, isn't that an example of taking a strongly held opinion and sharing it with others in order to persuade them to pass the Civil Rights Act, to abolish segregation, for example? Editorials, advertisements, letters to the editor. You might pull out letters to the editor and talk about what are the writers trying to persuade the readers. And then lastly, you'll see on the handout that one of the purposes of writing is to express feelings and thoughts, to write in journals, to write letters, to write poems, songs, rap verse, in order to get ideas and thoughts and feelings across to others, to be a healthy outlet for emotions. So again, that handout kind of outlines that as a jumping off place to discuss with students. So one of the strategies we might start with in helping students become better writers is to talk with them about how we write descriptively. Talking about using sensory language, using synonyms, coming alive with writing by filling it with rich examples. So what I like to do, one exercise I like to do, is to get students to engage their five senses. So I might write on the board, you know, what are your five senses? and then we might pick a place like the beach, or a barbecue, or your grandmother's kitchen, or the bus, or the park, and then say, let's just fill the board with sensory language that we might use to describe this place. So what do you see at the beach? And the students have no trouble doing this out loud and coming up with lots of examples of all the things that they see, that they smell, that they hear. It's harder for them to just begin writing on their own a description of the beach and why they love the beach, but once they get ideas from others, once they get a chance to say it out loud, they can come up with some pretty rich, colorful, descriptive language to describe a place or a place that they've been or a place that's special to them. So you might spend some time talking about descriptive language by generating some key vocabulary related to the 5 senses. You also might spend some time up front talking about synonyms and how important it is to use expansive vocabulary. I meant to put a slide in here, and I've done this with students, and I forgot to do it, but I meant to put in a slide where I wrote something like, he is a nice person and he does good things, I like him, right? That's the kind of writing that a beginning writer might use, that we want to expand that vocabulary. So what's another word we could say for nice? What's a different word we can use for good? So I like this cartoon because it's a reminder of, instead of saying just fight, there are lots and lots of ways to say that. We want to encourage students to expand their vocabulary by using synonyms. And if you Google synonym worksheets or expanding student writing through synonyms vocabulary, all kinds of really good lists will come up. And also giving students access to dictionaries and thesauruses, so that when they're writing simple sentences, you can say, well, let's see if there's another way that we can use language instead of those words, if there might be more interesting ways to play around. So playing around with synonyms, doing lots of activities around that is going to help stretch their vocabulary. The other strategy that can be really helpful in just freeing students up and feeling comfortable with writing is to encourage them to write to express their thoughts and feelings. And I'll be giving more examples of this and showing you some specific handouts you can use, but encouraging students to write in journals, encouraging them, if you read literature as a class, to write in response to that literature, responding to quotes, giving advice, writing letters to the editor, letters to friends, thank you letters, poems. We had we did 2 things recently that might be fun to use in the classroom. One is we read a number of short articles about smoking and the health effects of smoking, and then I asked students to write a letter to someone they know who smokes, and if they don't know anyone who smokes, they could write it to dear people, dear people who smoke, and then to talk about why people shouldn't smoke, what are some of the health effects, what's some advice that they would give on how to quit smoking, and they could draw on all of the articles that we had read in order to write their letters, and it was really effective. We likewise wrote thank you letters at Thanksgiving. Thank you to people in their lives who had been good to them and treated them well, and so they've had lots of experience with writing for a purpose, to express thoughts and feelings. Another thing that I like to do, and this could be used in journal writing, or it could be used in letters, or it could be used in any writing that relates to using emotions, is, again, if you Google emotions wheel, I think this is a really nice tool, because if you'll see in the center there's some keywords: happy, sad, anger, fear, disgust, surprise. But out of each of those spokes then comes lots and lots of other specific words that could be used that might be just a little bit better in describing those emotions. So I encourage students to, write about something that makes you feel sad, But use the emotions wheel then to stretch your vocabulary to say it a little bit more clearly, to say it with more specificity. So this is just a tool that they can then have in their toolbox for writing. Another strategy for getting students started, again, just to generate, what we're doing now is we're just generating lots and lots of writing to make them feel comfortable with the process. This is a very nice model for an I am poem, writing about themselves, again, using interesting vocabulary, using sensory language, and I found this at this website, www.dailyteachingtools.com, free graphic organizers. And this website address will come up again because I found a couple of nice ones there. They also have this Autobio Poems, which for your very reluctant writers, having something very structured like this can be a really good way to get them going because they're just filling in the blanks. What I like about this handout then is that it asks them to copy what they wrote in the blanks, to copy it into an original poem down at the bottom. Now, you could take student poems and create a book. You could take student poems and ask them to read them out loud to each other at a gathering or at a party. All kinds of ways to get them comfortable. One thing that I've had some good success with is asking students to write advice poems. And I often do this by showing them poems that other students have written or showing them poems that are accessible online. Langston Hughes is good, and some of the other poets who might have an advice poem that they could then write others in response. So let me just downsize this for a minute to take you to the website where you're going to find poems that offer advice. Let's see. Just for a second, take you to my program, Leon County Schools Adult and Community Education, has produced this transitions curriculum. We're at ace-leon.org/transitions. So if you go to this website, you're going to get this page. And this is the 18-unit curriculum that Nicole was talking about. So if you see, if I scroll down, each of these units has all kinds of reading and writing activities in them. So I encourage you to just go to it and play around. But the one I wanted to show you is in Unit 16. It's called Parenting Wisely. I click on that. I'm actually going to go back over here. And this is the page that will come up. These are all free printable resources. So if you find that online, print it out, you have a ready-made lesson for your class. I like to encourage students, and I'll talk about this also, but to read other student writing and then to come up with some of their own writing after they've seen some models. So these poems are all poems about being a good parent. That obviously doesn't apply to all our students, so you can look around and find something that might be appropriate for everybody. But even those students who aren't parents have been parented and probably have some advice to share. After sharing with them other students' writing, there's a sheet that asks them to write an advice poem in which they give advice on how to take care of others. And I tell them they can use metaphors or similes to communicate their ideas, which you may want to teach up front. They don't have to rhyme. They can be acrostic poems. But just, again, a very personal, very meaningful topic. They've been inspired by other student writers, and then they might write a poem to either publish or share with the class. And here's another example of, oops, let me get back to the slideshow. Here's another example of an advice poem. This is a student in a homeless shelter who was asked to write in the goal setting unit. There's a lesson on writing poems about setting goals. They read other students' poems about setting goals and then created a beautiful poem. Life is a vast ocean, and without the right equipment, you may get lost forever. So choose the right boat for you. I thought this was beautiful. Okay, before we go on to the next page, then let me ask at this point. I'm throwing out just lots and lots of ideas. If people have any questions or any comments at this point.
Hi, sorry about that. Let's see. We don't have any questions or comments right now for the actual webinar. The rest are just kind of ones that I answered privately.
Okay, sounds good. I'll check in again in a little bit. Thank you.
Okay, no problem.
Another idea for those students who are reluctant writers, again, we're giving them lots of exercises up front to help them feel comfortable with the process of writing. Another idea is to encourage students to generate lists. So you might write on the board things I'm thankful for and say to them, I don't even want an essay yet at this point. Let's see how much of a list you can come up with and what things come to mind when you think about the things I'm thankful for. And encourage them to fill the page. And sometimes I have to push a little bit and say, okay, start with your toes. Can you walk? Are your legs strong? You know, move up your body, move to your next circle, to the people in your life who you care about, who love you. Move to your community. You might ask them to write a list of things I love or people I care about or my favorite foods, things I believe are true, etc. So you can see from this list that just about any topic that has to do with things that our students are going to know well and feel strongly about because they relate to their personal lives could be a good place to start generating lists. And then those lists can be a jumping off place for writing a paragraph, writing a longer idea, a longer essay. Another strategy for getting students started is to give them practice expressing and supporting opinions, to give them opportunities to tell how they feel about topics that are important to them and in their lives. Well, I wanted to share with you a website called Procon.org. So let me downsize this for a moment. And take you to this website called Procon.org. You don't have to do it now, but when I stop and ask questions in a bit, I'd be curious to know if anybody has used this website or if you've had good experiences with it. It's very nice because it has a homepage that lists tons and tons of interesting topics, as you can see, some of which our students are going to have very strong feelings about. I certainly spent a lot of time with medical marijuana when it was an issue in Florida coming up for a vote. But a lot of these topics are going to bring up a lot of heated opinions. So for example, what you might do is you might pick a topic that would be interesting, that there will be strong opinions about one way or the other. Read as a class some of the pro and con, reasons for and against, and then ask students to write their opinions based on some of what they've read, so they could draw on their own experiences but try to also incorporate reasons from some of the pro and con arguments that they've read on the website. And what I love about this is it's not just one paragraph. There's lots and lots of various opinions to support both sides, and you can pick and choose those that you think would be most resonant with your students. So as you can see, www.procon.org www.procon.org, lots and lots of topics that would be resonant and interesting, and you could get some good discussions going. And I'll show you some graphic handouts for when you get to the point where they're writing longer essays, how they can develop those into essays. So another strategy for getting students to express their thoughts and opinions is to use words of wisdom or quotes to generate responses. So if we go back to the ACE Transitions website, and this is in the goal setting unit, Transitions Unit 3, Making Choices and Setting Goals, you'll see that you can print out a whole, and I would say probably 12 out of the 18 units has a Words of Wisdom handout. So you could print out the quotes, read them with students and discuss each one. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Have you had experiences with this in your own life? Do you think it's true that luck is a matter of preparation meeting opportunity? Do you think Madam C.J. Walker is correct when she says, don't sit down and wait for opportunities to come, you have to get up and make them? And this could be a good discussion. And then, after reading some of these quotes and discussing them, the students have more material then to work with. And then the next page asks them to pick one of those quotes and then reflect on it. What do you think the speaker means? Do you agree or disagree? Why or why not? How is the quote relevant to your life? And give specific examples to highlight its meaning. So again, this is just one of many strategies for getting students comfortable with the process of expressing their ideas in writing. And here's another example of that from the website. So now we're at the point where we want to help students choose topics that engage and excite them. Let me stop one more time and see if there's anyone who has any questions before we get into more of the nuts and bolts.
Okay, I'm going to check now. No questions yet. Linda Morris mentioned that she's used Procon.org for topics, especially with corrections students, and she seems to like that.
Excellent. Excellent. I'm glad to hear that because I also find it really rich for discussion, starting discussion. And then, when we talk about evidence-based writing, that we have to help prepare students for the GED, that's a really good place to go because they can then draw on all these expert opinions to support their arguments with evidence. So in that respect, it's also wonderful. So we want to then, after we have given students lots of opportunities to write, and let's say we're devoting the month of January to getting students prepared to write essays that they can submit to the essay contest. Let's say we've taken a couple weeks just generating writing through writing opinions about key topics, through responding to quotes, through writing advice poems, through writing letters. We've just been generating, we've been talking about synonyms, we've been talking about sensory language. So maybe doing that and then saying, okay, now what we want to do is choose a topic that you can write about at length. And they will have a number of pages of writing that they've done that they can then draw from. So another handout that I've included that you can click on before the end of the webinar is simply called Essay Topics. And what I've done in my class is I have given them this handout if necessary. Like if they're having trouble coming up with ideas even after you've done all of that stimulating activity, to pick one of these topics. And these topics are very similar to the suggestions that the Florida Literacy Coalition gives for essays that students can submit. And there are 13 of them, and on the handout you'll see that there's a place to check off the essay topic that they've chosen. You may have them write 3 essays after you've taught them strategies for writing essays, and then pick the one that they want to submit to the contest. As you can see, the lists that the Florida Literacy Coalition puts out as recommended topics are also similar to the suggestions that are on that handout. And there's a place for narratives and original poetry and that sort of thing too that you might have covered in some of that exercises that you did earlier. So now you've got reams of writing, we have a topic, and they're ready to start writing. So let's talk with them in very explicit terms about the writing process. So another handout that's included here that you might want to download to share with your students is not my original idea. This came out of one of the GED workbooks that we have that talks about the acronym POWER as a way to help students understand the steps of the writing process. Planning your essay, making sure now that you've picked a topic, making sure you really understand that topic and figure out what's the main thing that you want to say and gathering those ideas. O for organizing your essay, and we'll be talking about strategies for that. And then writing your essay in that organized way with an introduction and body paragraphs. The E and the R is what your next webinar is going to really focus on, the editing and revising and evaluating, reviewing, and improving that essay so it gets to a point that it's ready to submit. And I tell students that every single good writer writes and rewrites and edits and has other people read. None of us writes a perfect essay the first time. So that's very much a part of the process. So I would be very surprised if most of us adult ed teachers hadn't used some graphic organizer for essay planning somewhere along the way. I've always used the hamburger, and I know that some people have used the web, the spider web. There's an umbrella. There's a 5-finger graphic organizer where the thumb is the introduction and the pinky is the conclusion, and the 3 middle fingers are the body paragraphs. There's something called a diamond, which I was going to include and I didn't, but it can be found in these great websites that have lots of graphic organizers. So if that's something that works for you, and if that's something you think would help your students, something that you've used in the past, go ahead and use it. But there are lots of websites out there with nice tools, and this dailyteachingtools.com has a writing project planning map that I really liked because it has a place for students to write their topic. If I had $100,000, my hero is my dad, whatever that topic is. And then it reminds them of the purpose of writing. So I really like this because it reminds them that they're writing for a reason and to give them a place to check off what that reason is. It also asks them to think about their audience. Who's going to read this? What do they already know? What do I want them to know? And what part of my topic would interest them the most? And that's just kind of gets them thinking about it. And then here's sort of a modified spider down here where they put their topic in the middle and they just generate ideas for 3 or 4 things they want to say about their topic. So this is just a beginning, getting ready to plan the structure of the essay that I really liked. And this is, they call it the BLT essay sandwich graphic organizer. I've always drawn a giant hamburger on the board and talked about how important it is that we organize our essay in a way that keeps it all together. When you go to to Burger King and you ask for a burger, if all they gave you were 3 pieces of meat, you'd be pretty upset because it wouldn't be held together by the introduction and the conclusion like a good essay does. Now, if all they gave you was 2 pieces of bread and there was nothing in the body of the sandwich, then it's not going to be very interesting to eat. It's not going to be delicious. You're not going to get that sensory experience of eating the meat and the lettuce, the tomatoes, and the mayonnaise, and the mustard that you get with a really good hamburger from Burger King. So all of the pieces, the top, the bottom, and the body paragraphs are really important, and we have a lot of fun playing around with that. I draw this model on the board, and we model together an essay that we all choose a topic that everybody feels pretty comfortable writing about. We do a model introduction. We come up with examples and reasons for each of the 3 body paragraphs, and then we do a model conclusion. We had talked about writing for persuasion, and I thought this was a nice graphic organizer for that, where the position or the opinion is written in this box, and then reminding them they want to have supporting reasons and examples for why they hold that position, and then they want to be able to they want to have 3 supporting reasons, and then they want to be able to explain those reasons with examples. So I thought this was also very nicely done. dailyteachingtools.com, free graphic organizers. This handout comes from scholastic.com, which are teacher-designed graphic organizers, and this one is a shorter version of an opinion essay that uses the word Oreo, so it helps them remember it. It's more of a paragraph than it is an essay, but you could expand each of these into a paragraph as well. I liked it. You might even give everybody an Oreo while they're doing it. That would definitely encourage them. This is another example from Scholastic of writing your opinion and making sure that and it gives examples of some transition words and some opinion language that you could use. State your opinion clearly in a single sentence, and then convince your reader with reasons and examples. So this, for those beginning writers, some of this structure can be very useful. And even for the advanced writers, as they prepare for the evidence-based writing for the GED, for example, this is a reminder of how important it is to organize your essay. And there's more. There are more out there. Scholastic.com has some good ones. You want to go through them, obviously, and pick out those that are adult enough in nature, that don't have pictures of little children on them or anything like that. But there are enough in there that you might find some good ones. And there's another one called teachervision.com that has, and again, I got some of these by just Googling free printable graphic organizers. And I have found in my experience that students really gravitate to these as a beginning point, and then can take that content and transfer it to a handwritten essay, which they then transfer to writing it on the computer. Okay, so one of the things that I find extremely useful in helping students to feel comfortable with the draft stage of the writing process is to share with them writing by other students. So if you have done this before and you've collected some of your student writing, that would be great to share. And I encourage people to do that. My students just love seeing their work in print and reading essays that other students have written. But if you don't have that yet at this point, there's no better resource than the floridaliteracy.org essay book. Let me show you how to find that on the website. So if we go to the, sorry, I can't see, so here we go. If we go to the Florida Literacy Coalition website and click on the link, I think it's under Literacy Resources, Teacher Tutor. you'll find the Florida Adult Learner Essay Book that you can download. And it's a very long book, so you'll want to go through and pick out those essays that you think would be enjoyable and interesting to your students, maybe on a topic that you're going to use as a model. You can download that in PDF, as many of those pages that you want, photocopy them and share them with your students. The call for entries is on this same page, and I'll share that with you in a minute. But if you'll notice, so this is the 2016 essay book. They have all of the former essay books here on this website, and you can look at each one and, like I say, just pick out those essays that you think would resonate with your students. So you can see they've been doing this for a long time, and they're just beautiful. I will tell you two stories about the Florida Literacy Coalition essay book that make me a big fan of it. One is that I work in a drug rehabilitation center, and one night I was with 6 or 7 women, and I had pulled out a number of books for them to read during the time that we were apart. And one of the books that was in my box was, I think, This Milestones, or maybe This My Way. It was some of the old essay books. And you can get a couple copies of those books once your students have submitted essays. The Florida Literacy Coalition will send you a couple of copies for yourself if you request them. And they will send the students a copy of a book if they are published in it too, and that's super exciting. But anyway, I had a couple of these books available for students to read. 2 of the women borrowed a Florida Literacy Coalition essay book. The next time we met, which was a week later, these 2 ladies were so excited because they had found other women in prison in Gadsden County, which is near us, who had written their personal stories and poems and narratives and had been published in the essay book. And they came back so excited that other people had had their similar experiences and had been published in this book, and they were very encouraged then to go ahead and write their own essays. So it's very powerful. The other story related to this is that I have another student who unfortunately was incarcerated for a couple of years, and I met her in a halfway house. After I hadn't seen her for a couple of years, she came up to me, gave me a big hug, and said, "Do you have my essay book? Do you remember that we were going to publish my essay in the essay book?" And unfortunately, she had been incarcerated before she had a chance to get a hold of the book. I was able to go back, find the copy from literally 3 years previously, bring it in the next week to show her, and she was thrilled. And I found her later in the kitchen with another woman reading her essay out loud to her. It's, to me, incredibly moving how powerful that experience is. So anyway, all of that is to say, share writing by other students and get your students excited about publishing. Sharing writing by other students is positive and powerful because it's a great way to model essay organization, to get ideas from other writers and stimulate their thinking, to help them feel connected with other learners, to help them develop confidence that they can be published authors, to generate enthusiasm and excitement for writing and for publishing. So that's it. The next step then is to get them to compose that rough draft and then prepare for the editing, revising process. Speaking of that, the Florida Literacy Coalition is going to be presenting another webinar on January 12th from 1 to 2 by Jamie Adelson Goldstein, who is the author of the Oxford Picture Dictionary, and from what I've heard, she's awesome and she's an excellent speaker. So I'm going to sign up for it myself to learn from her. She's doing a webinar called The Fine Art of Feedback, Helping Adult ESOL Learners Edit and Revise Their Writing. So I think that'll be useful to all of us. And Nicole can tell us more, but I think that you can register for that on the website at floridaliteracy.org. And I strongly encourage people to submit their student writing to the Florida Adult Literacy Adult Learner Essay Book Contest. I think that the contest is opening January. I actually don't know, Nicole, if the
it's actually open now.
It's open now, so people can start submitting, correct?
That's correct. If you go on floridaliteracy.org, you'll actually see it under our literacy news section. So it's not too hard to find. You can also access the older essay books from that page as well.
Okay, so I have a minute. I'm going to go do that. Let's look at that real quick. So, am I on the right page here? Let's see. Yeah, so this is the page, right? Essay Book Home.
And you can actually go straight, if you click on Florida Literacy Coalition in the corner, that'll bring you to the new page.
Okay.
Up
right here?
Yeah, all the way
on
the left. Yep, that's the one. So if you go there, probably takes a minute.
Right.
So this is our home page. So if you scroll down, it should be on the banner, so you can let that scroll through, but it's also under 2017 Adult Learner Essay Book, so it's about the fourth one down. Okay, I think you went a little too far. Yeah, just scroll back up.
2017 Adult Learner Essay Book Call for Submissions.
That's correct.
So I'm going to click on that.
Yeah, it's also on the banner. Our literacy news page changes from time to time, so
okay,
you can definitely find it on the banner. So that's where you're going to make your submissions.
That's great, and it's actually a really great process for the students because it involves computer literacy to have to go online to submit something. There's an online form that they have to fill out. They have to write a bio describing themselves on the same page as the essay, and then they submit it through this website. And they're pretty much guaranteed to be published in the book, and the books will be sent to the teacher then to distribute to the students after the conference, so that in May. And like I say, I can't say enough about what a positive experience it is for students. And it's not hard to find, and it's not hard to access.
And I just want to add that while we do publish quite a few of those essays, it's also an incredibly popular contest. So there's a good amount of people who don't get in the book, unfortunately. But we do publish, I think, about 2/3 of the essays.
Okay. I've never had a student not, but that's just my good luck, I guess. So I'm glad to hear that you publish as many as you do. Let's see. So that's all I have, unless anyone has any other questions or comments or anything that they've done that they wanted to share.
We do have one question from Sienna Myers. Do you have suggestions for fun activities to do to get students excited and fired up to start writing?
Not off the top of my head other than what I have here, but I'd love to hear some. Just you know, maybe putting topics in a hat and pulling them out and having them verbalize it out loud before they start to write. I've put cards with words and quotes on the table for them to, just pick one and write. I've put pictures, photographs of, beautiful scenes in nature or people, and had them work in small groups to write all the words they can think of to describe what's in the picture. That kind of gets them into it without feeling intimidated, like, oh, I have to write a long essay, let's just brainstorm together. So those kinds of things can be fun. You could project pictures up on a screen and then ask them to write as many words as they could think of to describe what's in that picture. I've talked about food as a way to generate writing because everybody loves food, and we might write describe your favorite food and put have students write a couple sentences and share with each other. Or again, anytime you work in small groups, I think you get them a little bit more into it because it takes some of the intimidation away. What else? I'd love to hear from other people for other ideas to get people excited because that's a great question.
Okay, Anne, I think that's all we have for questions right now.
Well, excellent. Thank you very much for listening to me go on and on. I hope that some of this is useful, and make sure to check out the editing webinar that's coming up and registering for that on the website.
Yes, I'd like to mention that if you take a look at your chat box, I went ahead and sent, it's not advertised yet, but I went ahead and put the sign up for the webinar, the fine art of feedback, and I put the link in the chat box as well. So if you want to go ahead and sign up for that early, you are more than welcome to sign up for that now. Okay. All right. So, Anne, is that all, or did you want to mention anything else?
I think that's good.
All right. Well, fantastic. Thank you so much, Anne, for doing this again. Anne was so gracious to do a webinar for us before for our Mystery Writers Contest, and she always does a fantastic job. We also want to thank the Florida Department of Education for making this webinar possible, as well as our other training events and other resources we have on our website. We can't really do it without the generous support of the Florida Department of Education. All right. And I believe that's it. Thank you all for joining us, and have a wonderful day and have a wonderful Christmas.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.